The U.S. Census Bureau says Detroit has lost 8,000 residents in the last year. Mayor Duggan says the Census Bureau is a clown show. The push for a third political party is hardly new, but is there a new potential in 2024? And is Mario Willis the latest in a line of people who should not be in prison? Today is Sunday, May 21st, 2023, and this is Flashpoint.
Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. In recent weeks, we have talked about the encroachment of a 2024 election that no one really seems to want. Polls show Americans would really rather not see Biden-Trump the sequel, and now we have several efforts at work toward a third party. Now, this is nothing new. Every time a third party effort builds, its proponents seem to think that it is the perfect time for a party to supplant the Democrats or Republicans. On a couple of occasions in history, we have had what are known as realigning elections. The last time it happened, 1856, when the Republican Party put the Whigs out of business. But is there reason to believe we're due for another such upheaval? We're going to talk about that this morning. Also, if you live or spend time in the city of Detroit, do you see a city that is growing or a city that is retracting? The Census Bureau says it's the latter, and that Detroit has lost thousands of citizens in the last year. Mayor Duggan says the census is clueless, and you only need to look at Postal Service deliveries and rising home values and home starts to see evidence of growth. Now, this isn't just a merely academic exercise. There is a lot of money on the line. We'll talk about that, too. And Wayne County's Conviction Integrity Unit is currently considering the case of one Mario Willis. He sits in prison, having been found responsible for a fire that killed Detroit firefighter Walter Harris in 2008. But does the case against Willis hold up? It's all today on Flashpoint. Well, is Detroit proper growing or shrinking? We're going to talk about the census controversy coming up, but let's start with whether the election no one seems to want might give birth to something that is often talked about but very rarely achieved, and that's a third party with a fighting chance. My Knights of the Round Table this morning, Dennis Darnoy from Densar Consulting is with us again. Nancy Keffer, the editorial page editor of the Detroit Free Press. Portia Roberson is the CEO, of course, of Focus Hope, and my colleague here at Local 4, Christy McDonald. Gang, thanks very much for being here. Dennis, let me start with you. We talk about this every year. People say, I really wish there was another party. It really hasn't had a fighting chance. Now we've got an interesting thing happening here. You've got people like Dave Trott, Fred Upton, some, I guess, I don't know if we want to call them disaffected, disenchanted, recovering Republicans who are trying to find some middle ground, another space. And in an election when nobody seems to like the prospect of Biden-Trump 2, is there a fighting chance here?
Well, the thing to remember is that third-party candidates traditionally poll a lot better than they actually receive votes. So when you look at Ross Perot in 1992, he was polling pre-election at about 36%, and he only received 19% of the overall vote. Since 1921, there have been 27 presidential elections. In that time, third-party candidates have only received 186 total electoral college votes, 88 of those coming from Teddy Roosevelt when he ran on the Bull Moose ticket after he had been president. The last third-party candidate to get electoral college votes was George Wallace in 1968. So can a third party have an impact and play a spoiler role? Yes. Is there any reason to expect that a third party candidate would receive the votes needed to become president? No, not at all.
Really tricky then. Proud Alabama that you are. I know you love thinking about the George Wallace years. But this is something that people, Dennis is right, something everybody talks about as if they seem to want, but there really doesn't seem to be a path for it.
So I just want to let you know I am going to have none of those numbers. Like, that was intimidating.
Excellent. This is graduate level work.
Yes. Yeah, but I mean, that's correct. People talk about wanting it. It doesn't ever really pan out. The only thing I think that's different this time, and I don't think it's going to be a game changer, is that the donor class for the Republican Party has been so disappointed with the quality of candidates that the state party is putting forward. Last year we saw a total drop-off in giving. The party was being funded by one or two donors. So if there is an opportunity here, it's for the donor class to support this. If they were to jump in with donations to a third party, that would be a different thing. And that's not normally, that opportunity has not existed in previous things.
Sure.
I generally think it's very, again, like Dennis said, a thing people talk about they don't really want.
It's daunting, but to Nancy's point, if the money, follow the money, and the money in Michigan, let's kind of bring it down to a micro scale here. The money in Michigan Republican politics has walked away.
It's kind of sad.
Right.
It doesn't want to. So
right.
they do have the heft if they
chose to. But I think the other concern is that when you mention the candidates who are looking at a third party route and a third party, you're talking Fred Upton, you're talking, as you mentioned, David Trott. You know, the concern that I think that you have to sort of think about for them is that I think that they're running or considering that kind of run because they don't want Trump to come in again, because their opposition to him has been out there very strong. Traditionally, what has happened is that a third-party candidate will pull away from the Democratic candidate. Will they come to those people, or will they go over to Trump and then eliminate what they were trying to do in the first place, which is to avoid having Trump be reelected as president?
It's so funny, Christy, because we talk about how important the middle is. The independents decide elections in Michigan.
We're always looking, where are those independent voters who are undecided voters by the end? I think it's interesting when they talk about what they would name as the common sense party. And maybe, because it doesn't seem common sense really gets a lot of the attention these days, but maybe in talking about this, that what we're really looking at is what is common sense for all of us. So what are the issues moving forward in this next election cycle that we want to focus on? So maybe if we talk, is the money really going to be there? Is it really going to be making a difference? And Dennis, I do love the Cliff Clavin history lesson was awesome because it does put in perspective what this really could mean. But maybe it's just a different conversation about what the most important issues are going to be.
So part of the problem in this framing is that this is presented as voters from both sides are disgusted and fed up, and you're talking about, extremist candidates. So Gretchen Whitmer, for example, not up for re-election again ever. She's going to be term limited in 26. She's a moderate. Joe Biden is a moderate. He was elected because he was a moderate. He's done a lot.
He's disappointed some liberals.
Correct.
Because not left enough.
So this isn't like, people are really unhappy about the Biden-Trump rematch, but I think it's the Trump part they're really unhappy about. So this isn't there hasn't been a big fall off in Democratic donations. There hasn't been a lack of enthusiasm among Democratic voters. So a lot of this framing centers around the idea that there are people on both sides of the aisle that are fed up and want a third option. I don't think that's true, though.
Well, I'm not sure, Dennis, because I think a lot of people do, even those who love Joe Biden, think about the fact that he'll be 86 years old at the end of that term. And out of a country of almost 350 million people, we can only seem to find two elderly white men to run, I think is frustrating to a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think to Portia's point, here would be my concern if I was on the Democratic side. In 2016, we saw in the presidential election a large number of third-party votes happen. 4 years later, Trump increased his support, but Biden won those third-party voters by 35 points over Trump. So if we go back to an election cycle like we had in 2016, where there are more third-party candidate votes being cast, when you look at whether it's Arizona, Wisconsin, or Georgia, states that Biden won by 20,000 votes, 13,000 votes, 12,000 votes, if they start to fade away, you are looking at a third-party entity helping Donald Trump in those elections, because Donald Trump's support isn't going anywhere. So
also the hard part of finding this, Portia, is trying to figure out who that person is that would really like. I mean, clearly we all remember the Ross Perot. He was lightning in a bottle there for a while. I still think if he hadn't gone on 60 Minutes 2 weeks before and sounded kind of all of a sudden like a paranoid, I don't know, he just kind of got crazy as he got closer, that he might have even done better than his 18%. But trying to find that golden child out there who it can be, I'm not sure who that is yet.
Well, and to think about calling themselves a common sense party, like, I don't think, as Nancy said, that it's about, with Biden, I don't think it's about common sense. I think people like where he is in terms of his ideas and what he has. It's about his age. And that's a different concern. That's not about not wanting him to be able to lead the country. If he were younger, I think there would be more people that were more excited about Biden. I think their concern is about, can he make it through a second term? And so I just think that at the end of the day, we're not going to find that candidate that's going to be such a lightning in the bottle. I don't want to end up with Joe Manchin. I don't want to end up with some of these other people who consider themselves to be independent or have acted as independents, but really I don't think will serve us well in terms of the views and the way they're taking this country going next.
You know, I think when you say common sense also, Portia, people are also looking at what's happening now in the next couple of months. Is the U.S. going into a recession? And they're not looking down the line where my life is going to be 5 years from now or 8 years from now. They're looking at what is going to happen for me and my family in the next 6 to 12 months. And that is.
Oh, you mean the way most elections are decided? It's always just that simple. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We come back, we'll talk about problems with the Detroit census. The mayor ready to go to war with the Census Bureau. This is Flashpoint on Local 4.
Save on world-famous Stickley during Gorman's home sale. Everything Stickley is priced to sell. Take advantage of factory-authorized discounts on America's leading brand. Now, during the Stickley home sale at Gorman's.
So you want a new kitchen or bathroom without all the time and decisions of a full remodel? Start here. At Curtis Kitchen and Bath, you can add a new look to your home in half the time at half the cost when you start here. With Curtis, you can choose to reface or paint your existing cabinets, add new countertops and fixtures, and the makeover you desire is complete at a fraction of the cost in as little as 3 days. Book your free design consultation today. Call 888-CURTIS-1. Curtis Kitchen and Bath. Easy and affordable. Start here.
When it comes to good things, we always want more. And Miss Moore was no different.
More.
So when she was injured, she called Morgan & Morgan. With more than $15 billion recovered, she didn't have to ask for more anymore.
Sign up now and we'll match your first deposit up to $1,000 in casino bonus funds, plus 200 free spins. Play your favorite games and you could win the next big jackpot. Only at GoldenNuggetCasino.com.
Save 40% off all the latest styles from Hooker. Furnishings for every room are on sale. That's 40% off bedrooms, dining rooms, and living rooms from fashion leader Hooker. Factory authorized discounts of 40% off Hooker at Gorman's.
Flooded streets, homes damaged, and it's happened over and over again.
$40,000 in damages. You know, the average person doesn't really have $40,000 just lying around.
So why are developers allowed to keep building on the wetlands in Macomb County?
You do what's right for the people. You don't let them flood out.
Local 4 investigator Karen Drew is getting answers.
We spent some time digging through documents, and what we found would really surprise you.
And why you should care even if you don't live there. Man vs. Nature, Monday at 5:45 on Local 4 News.
All right, welcome back. Before we leave the topic of third-party candidates and move to the census, Dennis, you wanted to throw an interesting wrinkle into the possibilities here?
Well, I think the question becomes if Donald Trump is not the Republican nominee, and let's just say it's Ron DeSantis, who he is currently battling with, and sometime midweek this week, Ron DeSantis will make it official. Does Trump consider becoming his own third-party candidate? Will his supporters decide, that we would have won the nomination if it weren't for Ron DeSantis, and he tries to pull a Teddy Roosevelt? And I don't think those people have ever been compared, but I just did it here on that show. So that will be an interesting thing to see what happens in the Republican nomination, because we're all assuming right now it's going to be Donald Trump. What does he do if he is not the nominee?
We're all about to head to Mackinac. A couple years ago, John Kasich up there said to everybody, there is no Republican Party, there is the party of Trump. And perhaps he believes that too. Donald Trump believes that too. So that would be an interesting wrinkle. Really curious about where this is all headed with the census, Portia. The mayor obviously believes that the census is wrong, to put it kindly.
Put it nicely.
Showing 8,000, a loss of 8,000 citizens over the last year. I think some of this is ego, right? We don't want to believe that we're now just the 28th largest metropolitan area. But it's also attached to real dollars. This really matters.
Yeah, I mean, you think about the funding that you lose out on as the population continues to drop. I do think that there are some real issues, though, with the census and how it counts people. I mean, we saw that during the pandemic when there was a thought that you could just send people out to folks' doors and ask them to do something on the internet, and none of that really worked. And so we saw a decrease then. Now we're seeing another decrease. I know that there are people who are moving here, and I don't know if it's 8,000 people, but I know there are people moving here that have not been counted. I haven't been counted in any real time, like not lately. So I'm wondering, what other measures?
You did fill out your census form.
I did fill it out, yes. But these continuous updates that we're losing more people, you kind of wonder, like, where are they getting these numbers from? the mayor says that we are building additional affordable housing because we know that there are people who want that, who need that. Is that for all new residents, or is that for some who are just moving into other locations? But the reality of it is that I think the mayor, he's upset because, again, there's real money tied to this. Right. And the lower we go, the less money we're getting. And we need all the dollars we can get.
The mayor also, Christie, not only wants to use sort of housing starts and the fact that prices have gone up by 20% on Detroit homes, but also how much the Postal Service delivery is up. I'm not sure. I mean, those all feel like... I don't know. Those sound like, well, that sort of sounds reasonable, but I'm not sure it's science. So I'm trying to figure out how many people live here. Exactly.
And I think what also stings for the mayor is he said when he took office, judge my job performance on if I grow the population. And this has been a problem now for a number of years. One thing, though, I think we can also step back outside of Detroit. This is a Michigan problem. And if you look across the country, Michigan, we are suffering. And around the Midwest, we are lagging in population compared to everyone else, even surrounding us. So when you say, oh, the kids are moving to Denver, they're going to Austin. They're also populating the Midwest around us as well. So this is really a larger Michigan issue. And what I'm concerned about is that we are just now going to say, well, let's start to study how we figure this out and grow the population. And this is already an issue that is way 6 years
on down. You're right. Yeah. And Nancy, I have long had this sort of, I don't want to call it arrogance, but confidence that, because we've talked a lot about climate refugees, that Michigan is just going to keep looking like a better place to be when it comes to water, when it comes to climate. But this is an acute problem today.
So there's two things about Detroit's population. We know that a lot of people move to Detroit, but they don't officially change their residence to Detroit because they prefer to keep an address in the suburbs where insurance is cheaper. And it's still pretty expensive car insurance in Detroit, despite the changes, reform. The other thing is, I was prepared to be pretty eye-rolly about this story. Sure, like Christie said, the mayor has explicitly linked population to his job performance. Like you said, is it an ego thing? Until reading through the story, I got to the part where Kurt Metzger was agreeing with this. Kurt Metzger, if folks don't know,
Data-driven Detroit.
Data-driven Detroit, the gold standard of demographic analysis in this region for a long time, and whose first job was at the U.S. Census Bureau back in the 70s. So if Kurt Metzger is saying there are some questions, reasonable questions to ask here, I mean, this guy knows his stuff backward and forward, and so that adds a lot of credibility to the assertion that there was a problem with the count.
In fact, the Census Bureau is really hesitant. They don't give up their methods and formulations, I guess, because they figure if they get out, then people will find a way to to work toward them and abuse them a little bit. But this is all very opaque.
Yeah, they should be more transparent in terms of how they're doing this. There's so much money and so much power, representation, electoral college votes that are dependent on population. And obviously, what we're facing coming out post-pandemic for a lot of the cities and how they raise revenue and in relation to businesses being downtown and the people working there. I mean, all of this is things that should be out there on the table for people to observe. And again, I agree, the data people say are there questions here? Yes, there are. Then you have to ask those questions.
It's good of you to mention that electoral vote, because we lost one the last time around. Exactly right. Gang, thanks so much for the conversation. We'll all head out for pancakes in a minute. But when we come back, though, the story of Mario Willis. This is Flashpoint on Local 4.
It was nice to be able to call and get quick response.
As it benefited to me and my family, I recommend to everyone. It's available 24/7.
They really do care about your well-being.
During our Memorial Day sale, Gardner White will do what no one has ever done before. Put the best furniture in the world on sale. So now you can afford the best, like the Century Cornerstone Sectional for 50% off. That's a real half off. Or buy a Bernhardt bedroom or dining room for up to 50% off. Or bring Vanguard home for as little as $1 a day with 0% financing for 60 months. And as always, it's in stock. Plus, we deliver and set up the same day for free. Gardner White, the best for less.
The funny thing about change is, it's never around when you want it. And you really want it when you have an instant game from the Michigan Lottery. With so many to choose from and millions in cash prizes, a little play can make your day. Play large, win large. The new instant games with top prizes up to $2 million and over $179 million in total prizes.
I love that healthcare is at my fingertips at any time.
I don't have to take time off from school. I recommend to everyone.
As a student of WCCCD, this is a great benefit to have. It works on your schedule.
My reputation. Interesting question. Okay, so there's good and bad. My reputation, many times I show up and people run. So, I don't know. But normally there's a good reason. If they're running, they probably did something wrong, right? I think I have a reputation of she's gonna hold you accountable. So many times people are afraid to ask questions or go to someone up above them and say, hey, this is wrong. And I'm more than happy to do that. My reputation is I'm gonna fight for you. So I'm proud of that.
All right, finally this morning, I wanted to bring you the story of Mario Willis. You may have seen my report earlier this week on Local 4 News, but I wanted to show you the extended version. Mario Willis is sitting in prison where he has been now for more than a decade. He was convicted of second-degree murder in a fire that killed Detroit firefighter Walter Harris. But to many, the conviction really doesn't add up, and that certainly includes his mother, Maxine, who has been working every day since his conviction, trying to set him free.
If you said to me, Maxine, what would you want in a son? That's my Mario.
Maxine Willis loves to talk about her son. Smart, dynamic, passionate, driven, everything good except his address, which is currently the Saginaw Correctional Facility.
When a person is incarcerated, the whole family is locked up.
For more than a decade, this has been Maxine's cell, the basement that she's turned into an evidence room.
Anything to do with the report.
Mario Willis is serving a 30-year sentence for second-degree murder, convicted of arranging an arson that killed a beloved Detroit firefighter.
Walter Harris, at 37, lost his life doing a job he loves.
It's been 15 years since the night Walter Harris lost his life, a night that broke the heart of the Detroit Fire Department.
The right end there. Yeah. That's when he fell through.
The central figure in the investigation was Darian Dove, a handyman Willis often hired. The night of the fire, he and a woman were using an empty house owned by Willis for a rendezvous. Dove said he started a fire with a little gasoline for them to keep warm, but he said the fire got too close to the gas can. Suddenly, the place was aflame, and he called 911. Detroit firefighters arrived and worked to extinguish the fire, but it turned to disaster when firefighter Walter Harris was killed as the ceiling collapsed on him. Harris was immensely popular, a father of 6, a 17-year veteran of the force, and the department chaplain.
And it's going to be hard to go through a day here without hearing his laugh and seeing him smile. Excuse me.
When a first responder is lost, understandably, the investigation intensifies. Dove says he was pressured to change his story to say it wasn't an accident. Bill Proctor is the longtime Detroit reporter who now works on innocence appeals.
I think it's criminal here that someone with a badge, someone with authority, convinced someone to lie.
Eventually, Dove did change his story and told police Willis paid him $20 to burn the place down.
Why then should we not take him at his word when he says, look, I got paid $20 to set the place on fire? He said it.
He said it, but what else has he said? Mr. Dove was convinced through threat, and he has written down what the threat was. Either you give us Mario or you go to prison for life.
The house is gone, but this is where that fire occurred back in 2008. Couple of issues here. First, Darian Dove was the one who called 911. Arsonists aren't usually the ones who call the fire department. But the bigger issue, perhaps, prosecutors suggested to the jury that this was a case of insurance fraud, burning down a house in exchange for the insurance money. What wasn't explained to the jury was that Mario Willis didn't have this property insured against fire. He didn't stand to make a dime. The jury was also told the burn pattern suggested arson, but a later forensic study supported the accident theory. Also, in court, the prosecution said that Mario did not offer an alibi, but this video has come to light of Mario being interviewed by the arson team.
I remember you told me when I was at dinner. Yeah, it was that date night. Yeah, okay.
This interview was conducted 7 months before the trial, but it was never disclosed to Mario's defense counsel. While Maxine and I sat and talked, the phone rang. It was Mario calling from prison.
clearly there were some mistakes in the prosecution, but there were some pretty glaring mistakes in your defense too, right?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Unfortunately, my trial attorney, he felt like his exact words to me, Mario, this is going to be a formality at best.
In fact, during Mario's appeal, his attorney pointed to several instances of ineffective assistance by his trial lawyer. Now, Mario knows it is hardly unusual for an inmate to proclaim his innocence.
You're right. Everyone, when I came in here, I said, oh my God, everybody's innocent. No one did it. And so I said, okay, we have to show this through evidence. Just as I talked to you, sir, I would compel you to look through everything.
That's fairly easy thanks to Maxine's exhaustive work in her home and online. She sees a lot of similarities in Mario and Walter Harris. In fact, it's hard to miss. And her heart breaks for Harris's wife, Siri.
She was quoted saying that if there's been anything hidden, any wrongdoing, any egos involved, it needs to come out. So we're both looking for the same thing, the truth.
The jury didn't hear the whole thing. The jury never understood that this was an accident because they had so many people in government telling them, no, this was a conspiracy. They lied. They manipulated the truth. They sent 2 innocent men to prison. This should not be.
To add to the Willis family's despair, just a few weeks ago, a wrong-way driver on I-696 caused a wreck that killed Marvin Willis. That's Mario's younger brother, an unreal turn of events for the Willis family, who now turns their hopes to the Wayne County Conviction Integrity Unit. Now, they didn't want to comment on any specifics, but they have confirmed to me that Mario's case is currently being reviewed. That's going to do it for us this morning. Meet the Press coming up next. Have a great week. We'll see you next time for Flashpoint.